Rahul Kapoor, VP, Head of Shipping Analytics and Research at S&P Global Energy. It's certainly it sort of feels nearly like putting on an old sweater, talking about OPEC again, and people leave. It's like all the old. It's like it's sort of a journey back in time when things we were talking about. Oh, they might leave. They might. It's like it feels good, you know. And we're not talking about bombs and wars and blockades. But I'm going to now talk about bombs and wars and blockades because there's a big story out today. It's the top story on Bloomberg and elsewhere that Trump has reportedly told aides to prepare for a lengthy Hormuz blockade. The new normal is that we'll go back to talking about OPEC and OPEC policies while we still have a big blockade. Your thoughts on what a lengthy blockade could mean for the shipping, transport, and oil sector?
Hi, Sean. Thank you. Good to be back. I think it will be fair to say that nobody knows what the new normal would be for Strait of Hormuz, right? I think the challenge is whether we go back to the freedom of navigation, safe passage, all the energy flows which used to be a normal for Strait of Hormuz for decades, right? As in, this is the first time effectively the Strait of Hormuz has been shut. It was open. We've had tanker wars. We've had 1973 crisis, Gulf War, but oil as well as tanker energy continued to flow. As of today, we are down almost 90%. I think when we are, as in the industry, all getting excited by the first LNG tanker passing, as well as one VLCC passing Strait of Hormuz, that shows you how difficult the situation is today. Everybody is looking at these few vessels which are passing, but not effectively looking at that the traffic is down 98%. There's hardly anything going in, right? We almost 2 months in, and I can tell you when this thing started, this was not in anyone's bingo card that this would last for 2 months. But we're 2 months in, almost $1 billion of loss, billion barrels which have been lost, right? So if it were to extend, we will have to take into account that the Strait of Hormuz is not what it used to be, right?
Is
I
there
think,
any sense in
yeah,
this? I mean, we're 60 days now, and the signals
yeah.
out of Washington of this continuing. Uh, the that Are we seeing a new normal emerging? Is the market adapting, dare I say, to such a scale of disruption? You know, obviously we've got the
Yeah.
Saudis getting oil out of the kingdom on the Red Sea, the UAE getting it out through Fujairah. The demand destruction in certain places might be 3, 4, 5 million barrels up at this stage. Uh, could
Sure.
we live with the sustained Hormuz
No.
closure?
I think simple answer is no. I think our oil team as well as us within S&P Global Energy have been discussing the disconnect which we are seeing, right? I think, but May is when you start feeling it at the inventory levels, right? Everybody has been drawing down inventories. The floating storage across, whether it's the Russian barrels, others as well, have been in a deep drawdown. I think if this stays on for another few weeks or months, you'll start seeing the impact. We're basically back to where we were in terms of the oil prices after that ceasefire was announced first time, right? So the market has recouped back, dated Brent again still much, much higher. So our view essentially is the oil prices are headed higher if this continues to be in the play. And with every passing day, the situation only gets worse.
Rahul, does Asia have time? Do we see the where we're in shipping rates, for example, we're seeing prices come off. They seem to be
Yeah.
declining. Stock markets, as I said, still holding. Where is the
Yeah.
stress in the
I
Asian
just,
narrative
yeah,
at the moment?
certainly, Sean. But to the point, I think Laurie was making a great point, right? I think if you see the US LPG numbers in April are likely to hit record high. US LPG exports, right? That's coming to Asia, right? So Asia is able to find supplies, not to the tune where they were expected. The April number, May number in terms of exports or imports would be lower. But you also have these buffers, right? Chinese, Korean inventories have been higher. Japan has been higher. Even the US inventory is higher in terms of where it was, right? So I think that's one thing which is having a bit of a cushioning effect on the oil prices. But with respect to shipping, I think it's very important to understand is the shipping markets in terms of positioning of tankers that has shifted. What I mean by that is we have now close to 400 tankers which are ballasting towards the Atlantic towards the US. You have close to 80 VLCCs over the last several weeks, which are ballasting towards the US, right? So you'll have high US exports. But the fact is, if Strait of Hormuz opens tomorrow, you do not have enough capacity over the next several weeks and months to normalize those flows, right? Shipping is not just going to come back and the tankers are available sitting outside Strait of Hormuz to take those returning barrels even in few weeks' time, right? So what we've seen is rates which were pretty high because there was not much capacity available of Yanbu, went up to close to half a million dollars per day. Now they've corrected, capacity is there. Same thing for the US as well. Rates have corrected. But when we say correction, correction from where? Every tanker asset class today is above $100,000 per day, right? These are effectively $20,000, $30,000 break even, and tanker owners are making a lot of money right now. I think it's never been a bad time to be a ship owner, but the last several years, it's been extremely good to be a ship owner, right? Across the curve. But we do expect the market loss of volumes will start having a bit of an impact because the ton mile doesn't take care of all the barrel loss on the shipping market.
Um, we are obviously dealing with, so probably, possibly, no, well spread out there. Who the hell knows? But we are now obviously the end of the fourth month of 2026, and we've been through a series of choke point weaponization, if you like. The
Yeah.
Caribbean at the beginning of the year, the Venezuelan, the Panama Canal, the Chinese port operators were moved out. Now we've got a choke on Hormuz. Obviously, Bab el Mandeb has been troublesome for a while. We're getting closer to the Straits of Malacca. We're weaponizing choke points at a McDonald's near you. Um,
You read my
uh,
mind, right? From
and
Aruba.
if you look at
Yeah.
the other end of your waterway, we have major war games going on at the moment with the Americans on the Luzon Straits, north of Philippines, to block China's access to the Pacific Ocean in a war scenario. So I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
shipping thoughts in Asia,
I think
Malacca.
Yeah, exactly. I think if we were to come out of this with a certain tolling mechanism, I think that will be the end of it. What I mean by that is if there's a certain Iranian corridor established, Omani corridor, and you start charging tolls, I think that's the end of it in terms of safe passage, right? Every jurisdiction country will use that as a template to try and play some of these games, right? I think that's a very important thing. The safety of navigation, safety of passage, the UN laws of sea, as in the conventional law of seas, has to be
The
respected.
UN? What's the UN? I haven't heard of
That's
them
called,
before.
yeah,
The
United Nations Convention of
United
Law.
Nations.
Yeah,
I thought that was something we read in our history books. That they still exist, do they? Okay.
it does, right? I
Okay.
think
The
Singapore
laws of
ratified
the
it,
sea. It
so
sounds so cute. Uh,
So we have
yes,
to
go
watch
on.
that very closely. Yeah, I think we have to watch that very closely. We already heard murmurs from from Indonesian finance minister, I think last week in Singapore about doing something similar on on Malacca Strait was shot down by the Singapore and others as well. But we've never heard that before, right? So I think I'm closely watching in what state the Strait of Hormuz open, because if US were to accept that, who stops anyone in the future, right? You have Lombok Strait, you have others as well. It is a very important outcome which we are closely watching for the global trade, for energy security, I would say.